And welcome back. And it's been too serious today, and we're about to change that. One of the funniest people in comedy, Joey Mulinaro, is joining us. Obviously a comedian, but he also dips his toe in, oh my goodness, he's wearing an LSU cap. Joey, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Good to see you, man.
I mean, I don't know why you've never just tried to make a living off of being a Feinbaum caller. You would do so well.
You know, to be honest with you, Paul, you always kind of intimidated me a little bit. I know that I'd get on there and you'd, kind of put me in my place a tad. So I just tend to stay away, but I'm glad to be here, man. It's glad to finally talk to you. It's been a long time coming, I feel like.
Well, I'm glad you made it. Before we get to the invitations, and we'll obviously do that, let's talk a little bit about you and comedians come in all shapes. How did you become a comedian?
Well, I wasn't really good at any of the subjects in school that pay you the big bucks. Math and science are always kind of out of the equation for me, so I figured when I was about 12 years old that I got to find a new route here. And from that point on, I just was like, okay, how do I balance being able to be on camera and behind a mic, but also tell my parents that like I have a realistic way of getting a job? And that was what led me to going and studying sports radio and TV and media and things of that nature. And then from there, I just was like, you know what? I still have that kind of itch to, be funny and make videos and do impressions. And so I was doing all that on the side. And it kind of started taking off a little bit to where I could just fully go and now be a comedian on the road doing shows. And that's what I do for a living.
I've talked to a lot of comedians, and some of their stories are pretty legendary. Where they get that one moment, whether it's in the old days, being on late night and trying to get on the couch with Carson or Howard Stern, which I know, and you've done all these things. But was there a moment where it happened for you?
Yeah, I'd probably point it back to Thanksgiving of 2019. If you remember, Paul, I know you do. Which I want to ask you about how you're handling life without Saban on the sidelines. I know we haven't really kicked it off yet, but it's just been a weird transition, I'm sure. But that year was the year when you had Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, and they were battling it out. And Saban had that famous, now infamous quote after the Week 1 game against Louisville, I believe, where he told Maria Taylor, I'm not going to, so quit asking. And from that point, I was like, you know what? I think it'd be funny to do a quick little clip of imagining Coach Sabin in the kitchen with Miss Terry discussing what was going to be served for Thanksgiving and whether or not he approved of the menu. And so that's exactly what I did. And I put it out, and I really had no expectations, Paul. I had none. I was like, so much of what I do even still is just experiment. I throw something out there, and if it works, perfect. If it doesn't, go back to the drawing board, And a lot like LSU's defense should hopefully be doing this year. So I did that, and it did well, and I really caught fire. The next day on Thanksgiving, I had ESPN, Sports Illustrated, I think CBS, like a whole bunch. All these platforms were reposting and putting out my video of Nick Saban on Thanksgiving. And I think I jumped like 15,000 followers or something like that in one day. And that's when it was really like, okay, I think I've got people here now. How do I just keep them here?
So with Saban, obviously a pretty famous guy. Was there anything in particular about his dialect, his mannerisms? Obviously we've all seen them a million times.
Yeah, I think really what it comes down to for me is I always put myself, when I go to Coach Sabin, I put myself as if you're going to the BMV, right? And you get there and you start off and you keep a pretty mild-mannered throughout the first couple minutes. And then the more paperwork they ask for and the more things they tell you that you don't have that you're supposed to have, and the more they tell you how much it's going to cost, the angrier and angrier you get. To a point to where it just reaches you boiling over. And so that's what I always found hilarious with Coach Sabin is I always feel like he starts in like a pretty solid place. And then he doesn't even realize it almost that in the moment he's getting so worked up that he just boils over. And that's where we get those classic clips of him with the Coke bottle on the press conference podium that I'm going to miss, frankly.
Well, I guess this is where I ask you to do Nick Saban.
You want a scenario or something, or do you just want me to talk to you? What do you want?
Yeah, we just want to. I mean, we don't get a chance to talk to him very often, so we thought we would talk to him today.
Well, Paul, I got to tell you, I'm a little, frankly, confused about why we're playing this game over in Ireland, all right? Because you have Florida State and you have Georgia Tech. I don't really see the connection with Ireland, all right? Now, if it was with Notre Dame, I understand that because they're the Fighting Irish, and we already beat the hell out of them about 12 years ago. That makes more sense. But now, I'm over here, you got me sitting down with McAfee, and he's chugging Guinnesses. I don't know what the heck's going on. Miss Terry's on the dance floor. I'm in Ireland. Why the hell am I in Ireland, all right? I don't get it.
Well, duh. When you started doing these, and listen, I don't know anything about your business, but I know that you need more than a couple of different things. So who did you start adding to the portfolio?
Yeah, it was big for me. You know, I grew up playing baseball, Paul, and my dad would always say, hey, man, you know, if you got a good fastball, cool, but we need a changeup. We need a curveball. You know, he always ingrained that into me just from playing baseball. So that's always been in my head of, like, to your point. All right, Coach Sabin, cool. Now what else is there? You know, people are going to get tired of the Coach Sabin, right? Like, you have it in your feather in your cap, but what else is there? And it worked for me perfectly, and that's why I'm wearing the LSU cap, is because at that same time is when LSU was on their magical ride in 2019. Coach O was the man of the month, of the hour, of the year, and I added him into the arsenal. So then from there, you had a bunch of opportunities for me to have Coach Sabin, Coach O, have conversations back and forth over phone call. So that really helped. So it's always adding. You know, I'm always, whether it's you start with Coach Sabin, then you get on to Coach O, and now for me, you know, years later, Patrick Mahomes has become a big one. Rob Gronkowski has become a new one that I've been doing. So it's always just trying to find what's next, I guess.
I mean, O is interesting because everybody has attempted O, but he's not easy to do because you have to understand a little bit about the culture. So I haven't seen Coach O lately. If he suddenly showed up here today, what would he sound like?
Hey, bro, I was going to see it, man. I was going to see I was down there, that's what I'm enjoying my cheeseburgers. Like, pay me enough to get out the door and not have to coach Tigers anymore. So I just having a good time down there. Sometimes I have a gumbo, man. I do miss coming out with you. But what I especially like is when Joey, he makes fun of Coach Sabin, man.
And that's a fact. That's an actual quote from Coach O that he's told me. I went up to him at the Senior Bowl a couple of years ago. I said, we were talking and everything, and he just leaned in and he said, hey, I love when he makes fun of Nick, man. And so he loves when I make fun of Coach Sabin, and it's all in good fun, I like to think. And, man, I miss seeing him around. I know that.
He's out there. You probably, I mean, you know, he got $17 million, and I'm guessing he's burned.
Yeah, I think plenty of cheeseburger, Paul. They got plenty of budget to eat some cheeseburger with $17 million. I'll tell you that.
He's probably not much left. When you do we put up on the screen, you're going to be in Charlotte. You're on tour. When you go out, when you walk out in front of that audience, what do you begin with? I mean, obviously you have to have some lead into it, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do on stage, like, yeah, I'll tie in the impressions and weave them into my act, but when I'm performing, it's way more of an act in totality. You know, just pulling on my you know, stories of growing up, you know, being raised Catholic schools, playing travel baseball, now being a dad of 2 kids, going to Disney World, and you know, things of that nature. And yeah, I'll interweave my impressions for sure, but I don't want to get misconstrued that when people come to see me that it's just going to be me sitting up there pulling the string and now here's Chris Collinsworth talking about McDonald's drive-thru. It's not that. There will be an element of that for sure, but it's a full act that is more than just the voices.
Joey, people love to laugh, but there are also some areas. I mean, you hear it, you know it. When you're talking to an audience, I mean, most people are there because you know they're spending money, they're having a good time, they're drinking. What do you have your act in your head, but what are you watching for in that crowd as you begin?
Yeah, you can always kind of tell, Paul, from like the first 5 minutes of being on stage, kind of what kind of night it's going to be. You know, like you get out there and you always try to pepper them up, warm it up a little bit with that first 5 minutes. It's maybe not even in the act. Maybe you're making an observation about the city you're in, or some person that tried to sell you drugs on the street before you got into the comedy club, like happened to me in Buffalo. So you tell those little stories, and hopefully people are, like you said, hopefully they're lubed up a little bit. Everybody's ready to roll. But if you go out there and you're trying to pepper them up a little bit, some light banter, some observations that you've made from your time in the city or just from the audience that's there, and they're kind of not feeling it, then you're like, all right, I'm earning my paycheck tonight. All right, this is we're playing Alabama in Tuscaloosa here tonight, and I really got to earn my paycheck. This isn't Louisiana Monroe on homecoming weekend. So it all, yeah, you can tell from that first 5 minutes or so what kind of night it's going to be. When you're dying, and listen, every great comedian has just completely been laid down on that stage. I realize there's not a lot of time to compress it. We all know that anybody's ever been up in front of anyone knows that feeling. But how do you endure if you're dead? If after 5 minutes, it's not happening? Well, the first 5 minutes, it's not necessarily a total death sentence. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm laying in the hospital bed. The doctor's coming in. They're raising some eyebrows, but like I still got a pulse. We're making it happen. There's flowers coming into the room. Like, you're not totally on a death sentence yet. But I have been in those situations. And really, you just got to grit your teeth and just get through it, Paul. Just it's like you're running gassers, and it's 98 degrees in Baton Rouge, and you just know you got to get it done. And you're sweating. You're sweating like you're running those gassers in Baton Rouge. That's for sure. At least I am. But I think what it just comes down to for me is whenever that happens, it kind of helps in a weird, dark way. I get off stage and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be dead. We're all going to be dead one day, and no one's even going to remember it. So I bombed. Who cares? On to the next one.
I mean, isn't it? You got the check. You run as fast as you can.
And inevitably, yeah, it's just part of the game, and you can't let one of those bad outings. It's very reminiscent to like a quarterback, right? Everybody says you got to have amnesia when you're playing quarterback. You can't dwell on a bad pass or a missed route or miscommunication or a pick six. Like, you have to just throw on the helmet and get back out there and lead your team to another drive, man. So I'm pulling a lot of sports analogies here. I don't know if I'm putting my cowherd hat on or not, or what's going on. You're pulling them out of me, but that's essentially how I look at it. You got to have more than a fastball, and you got to have amnesia up on stage. If it doesn't go well one night, the next night it could be the most rocking show you've ever been on.
How would you describe that moment where everything is hitting? I mean, there has to be some sense of exuberance, Nirvana, when, I mean, you are owning the crowd.
It is the highest high of all highs. Like, it's truly insane, the life that I've chosen, and the career that I've chosen. And I tell my wife and my dad this a lot, and it's hard for them to understand, I think, because they're like, why do you, like, if you hate it so much? Because before every show, I'm just like, this sucks. I don't even want to do this. This crowd is going to be, I just know it's going to, like, yeah, that's just how you feel. And then you go into it and you let it rip. And then, to your point, when it hits, you feel like you're literally levitating on the stage, and there is no high that is greater than that, and that's what it keeps you coming back for. It's like when you're, playing a par 4 and you hit a drive that's like 280 yards, and you're sitting up pretty, and you're like, that's the one that keeps me coming back. Here we go with the sports analogies again. There's simply just nothing better. And for all the times that you bomb and you're sweating up there, and the times that you're just in fits backstage when you're just wondering how it's going to go and whatnot, when you get out there and you hear that burst of laughter and you know that you have the crowd in the palm of your hand, it's simply just the best high you'll ever have.
I got to try that one time. Joey Mulinaro, Joey, thank you. Are you on tour right now, or are you about to begin?
It's coming up. It's coming up starting October. Me and Ben Polizzi, my partner in crime, we host a podcast together called These Guys, where we just make fun of like 90s football players and uniforms and things like that. And so check that out if folks are into that. And yeah, it's starting in October. We'll be out on tour there. And I really appreciate you having me on. I got to ask. I know you're not. You're really. Are you happy that Harbaugh's out? Are you not happy? Real quick.
I'm pretty upset. I mean, to lose to lose Saban and Harbaugh within a week of each other was pretty devastating for me because I loved one and hated the other, and it's not much fun. I was thinking about comedy. That's why we had you on today. I was trying to get some tips.
I tell you what, the one thing I'll miss of Hardball is that blank stare that he has.
Oh.
Like he just got spawned into a 3-year-old's birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese. And somebody's like, you have 36 hours, and he has no idea what's going on. That's what I'll miss. Paul, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. You're a legend.
We love you. Thank you, Joey. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joey Mulinaro joining us as we take a short break. More of your phone calls right after this.